peeps and my peoples. I kind of want to start calling you guys that. Anyway, today I'm going to be reading part 5 or chapter 4 of Sheepfarmer's Daughter by Elizabeth Moon. Now, just a reminder, these books do mention rape, violence, things of that sort. So if you are triggered by any of that, I would suggest you just stop listening, because I don't want to be responsible for anyone having a problem with themselves or with others. So, yeah. Also, if you're a child and you're watching this, please click off, because I don't want to do this to any child either. Okay, so this is chapter 4. This time, the noise of boots in the hall was much louder. Paxtonarian struggled to sit up as they came closer. It must be morning. Her heart began to pound. Mia had said Stammel believed her, but Stammel's belief was not enough, she realized. She still didn't know if they would even listen to her side of it. The door opened. 2 guards carried torches, and 2 came into the cell. "Come on now," said the darker one. "It's time." Pax made it to her feet, unsteadily, then stumbled over the bucket. The guards caught at her arms to steady her. She was even stiffer than she had been the night before, and her head swam. The guards urged her out of the cell, holding her upright. With every step, the bronze chain rattled on the stone flags and dragged at her ankles. She had never imagined how hard it would be to walk with chains on. She peered down the stairs, a long way. The guards pushed her forward. She clenched her teeth, determined not to faint. As she walked, her tunic began to pull free from her legs. She could feel blood trickling down as one of the scabs tore loose. At the foot of the stairs, Pax swayed as she tried to look up. Her right foot would not lift enough to clear the first step. She tried the left, and made it. With the guard's help, she hauled herself from one step to the next. But at the landing she could go no further. She broke into a cold sweat, and her vision blurred. "No sense in this," she heard one of the guards say. "Let's get her on up." She was hoisted between them and carried to the top of the stairs, and then to the barracks entrance. Although the sun had not cleared the wall, there was ample light to see the precise formation drawn up facing the mess hall and infirmary. An open space larger than usual had been left in front of them. The guards turned Pax to the left and began moving her along the left flank of the assembly. Pax tried to hold herself upright and walk properly, but she could hardly hobble along. Not an eye slid sideways to look at her. She stared straight at the mess hall windows ahead. If only this weren't in front of everyone. Everyone would see her battered face and ripped tunic. She shivered. "Just a bit more," muttered the fair guard, holding her up as she tripped over the chain once again. At last they came to the corner, turned right, and approached the center of the open area. Now Pax could see the bearded man in chainmail, the captain, and the corporal with a mouse under one eye and a mouse under one eye and a bandaged hand, and Corin. She had caught a glimpse of Stammel, but he was now behind her at the head of his unit. She was placed in line with Steffi and Corin, facing the captain. Behind him were 2 strangers, a gray-bearded man in a plum-colored robe, and a one-armed woman in brown. Pax shivered again at the bite of chill morning air on her cuts and bruises. The captain stepped back to confer with the 2 strangers. Pax could not hear what they said. Then he came forward to address the assembly. "We are met this morning," he said, "to consider evidence pertaining to an assault, or apparent assault, yesterday evening by a recruit on a corporal of the regular company. Evidence is taken at open assembly so that none can doubt what was seen and heard. This evidence will be presented to Captain Valachi, who has presumptive jurisdiction on his return. 2 witnesses, having nothing to do with any of those being examined, will assess the physical condition of those implicated and hear their testimony. The witnesses are Mayor Herbert Fontaine of Duke West East and Koya Ministeria of the Council of Dukes East. You may proceed." The two witnesses went first to Steffi, walked around him. Ugh. Two witnesses went first to Steffi, walking around him, and then approached Corin. After looking him over, they came to Paxnarian. She tried not to look at them. The woman reached out to touch one of Pax's swollen face. The woman reached out to touch Pax's swollen face. Her touch was gentle, but Pax winced. One of them felt her tunic in back, where it was stiff with dried blood. They walked back to the captain and spoke stiffly. He nodded. "Guards, strip them," he ordered. Pax was suddenly terrified. She began trembling violently. "Take it easy now," muttered the guard. "They'll just want to look at all the damage. Be still." Meanwhile, the other guard had run a dagger along the shoulder seams of her tunic from neck to sleeve cuff, freeing it from the chains to fall around her feet. She glanced sideways. Steffi was taking off his own uniform. The guards pulled Corin's tunic over his head. Again, the witnesses approached them in the same order. Pax waited, trying not to show her fear. At last they were back to her. Again they walked around her, but this time they spoke to her and each other. "Tilt your head up," said the woman. "Look, Mare, that's a bruise, isn't it?" "Surely. One hand, I think. Stand up a bit straighter there." Pax tried to straighten, but her belly was too sore. "Bruises here, too, and she can't straighten. Can't tell what instrument. Could have been a fist, foot, elbow. Those welts are clearly from a strap of some sort." The witness walked back to the captain, leaving Pax shaky and sick. This time they spoke loud enough to be heard by all. "That man," the mayor nodded towards Steffi, "has a bruise on the left cheekbone, probably from a fist blow. 2 fingers of his right hand are broken. The knuckles on his left hand are skinned and bruised. He also has a bruise on his right shin. We find no other injuries. The male recruit has skinned knuckles on both his hands and a skinned knee. We find no other injuries." The mayor paused to clear his throat. "The female recruit," he said, "has more extensive injuries. A cut 2 fingers' breadth wide above the left eye, and another such cut above the right eye. Much bruising of the right cheek, the jaw, the right eye swollen shut, broken nose, possible broken jaw, bruised throat, bruises on upper arms and both forearms, bruised and skinned knuckles on both hands." Pax listened to the list of her injuries, felt the descriptions as an echo of the blow that caused them. She was determined not to faint in front of everyone, but her knees loosened and her head dropped. The guard shook her arm. "Don't listen to that," he muttered. "Look up. Count the mess hall windows. You can make it." Pax stared at the windows, trying to shut out the mayor's voice. 2 welts across her shoulders," the mayor was saying, "and a gash that could be from a blade or some stiff instrument such as a whip. Similar welts on buttocks and thighs, including several more gashes. Bruises on ribs and belly from hard blows, but with what is uncertain. Bruises on thighs, externally intense on upper inner thighs. Some sign of internal bleeding. The external evidence, Captain, is consistent with rape. Additional examination would be necessary to confirm that, if it is an issue." Pax noticed that the captain was looking at her for the first time. She could not tell if he was still angry with her. "Have you any additional comments, Counselor Ministeria?" asked the captain. "Captain Sejek, when one finds a woman beat up like this, and 2 men only lightly marked, the usual interpretation is that the men assaulted the woman." The dark woman's voice was brisk, with an edge of sarcasm. "But she's in chains, so I suppose that she's charged with assaulting them. On the evidence, without testimony, that's absurd. Even if she started the fight, she didn't do much damage, and she's been well punished. Furthermore, chains are clearly unnecessary. She can hardly stand up, let alone escape. She should be in the infirmary if you want her in shape to stand trial." The captain nodded. "Sergeant Stammel," he called. "Sir?" "Convey your recruit to the infirmary. The witness will take her testimony later. Guards, you may strike off the chains." "Hold up now, till we get him off," said the fair guard softly. "Seb will have to go for a chisel and stone. Not long." Stammel slipped an arm under hers on the other side. "You'll be all right, Pax. Take it easy." The dark guard came back with its implements and chiseled off the bent spikes that fastened wrist and ankle cuffs. "There you go. No need any help, Sergeant?" "We'll make it. Keep an eye on Basque. He may need you." The guard grinned. "Aha!" He picked up the fallen chains and moved to the side of the courtyard. With Stammel's support, Pax was able to manage the few yards to the door of the infirmary. Once inside, she slumped She slumped against him, shaking and sick again. He swung her into the nearest bunk and pulled a linen sheet over her. Mia was ready with a bowl of poultices and a jug of numb wine. As Stammel came back out, he looked square at Corin's face. Corin ducked his head and turned even paler than before. Stammel walked back to the head of his unit, impassive. "Are you ready to take testimony?" said the captain. The witnesses nodded. "Very well. I'll begin. After supper last night, I was chatting with the recruit sergeant and corporals in the Duke's courtroom when one of the guards brought word that a recruit sought Sergeant Stammel because of trouble in the barracks. The recruit stated that Corporal Steffi was involved. Stammel and I and Stammel's 2 corporals went directly to the barracks, and as I came to the door, I saw that recruit." He pointed at Corin, holding the woman. Steffi was lying on the floor with blood all over his face and tunic, and finger marks on his throat. The woman appeared to have a black eye and bloody nose. She didn't look nearly as bad as she did this morning, nor did she complain of any injury. The recruit holding her stated that he had just restrained her from killing Steffi, that he had just then gained control of her. Steffi seemed dazed and was unable to give a coherent story, but did say that he had asked the woman to bed him. The recruit said that Steffi had teased her when she refused, but nothing more, and that she had attacked him. On the evidence, Steffi appeared to be injured, perhaps seriously. I had the woman secured under ban and set a summary trial for this morning. Sergeant Stammel requested permission to question the woman about her actions, which I granted, and several hours later he appeared with a request for a formal trial and evidence to be taken today by witnesses. Did the woman say anything yesterday? Did you question her? No, the other recruit did all the talking. She didn't argue. It seemed obvious. The mayor turned to Stammel. Is that the way you remember it? Yes, Mr. Mayor. May I amplify? Go ahead. When I visited Paxonarian in the cell, I realized that she had taken more damage than was at first apparent. It seemed to me that her injuries made the story told by Corin and the other recruit inconsistent or even impossible. Her story made more sense. Stammel repeated what Paxonarian had told him, and then reviewed his own reasoning. This story fit her injuries better than Corin's. Paxonarian has been, until this, an outstanding recruit, honest and hard-working. Corin has a grudge against her. She has refused to bet him. What's her background, Sergeant? She's a sheep farmer's daughter from the Northwest. She ran away from home to join us. And this, Corin? He joined us in White Creek, claimed to have been in Count Serlin's guard, but wanted more action, I believe he said. And his record? Stammel frowned. He hasn't done anything that would require his expulsion. The unsaid yet trembled in the air. However, he has been the subject of complaint by Corporals Bosk and Devlin and our master seeker. That's not fair! Corin's face twisted in anger. You favor her. You always have. A pretty face. I'll warrant one of you has betted her. Bosk and Devlin each took an involuntary step forward. Stammel was rigid and white with fury. Before he could say anything, Coila Ministera stepped toward Corin and looked him up and down. Humph, she snorted. A fine man you are. She spat at his feet and turned back to the captain with a swirl of her brown robe. I suppose we must hear his testimony just to keep things straight. He's out, whatever he says now, growled Stammel. Nonetheless, said the captain, he must speak, and keep it to the truth, he said to Corin, if you can recruit. Corin's eyes slid from side to side. It is the truth, what I said. She went crazy and started hitting this corporal, and I thought he could take care of her, and I guess he did hit her a few times. Then she got a grip on his throat, and I decided to help him out and pull her off. He'll tell you, Corin gestured at Steffi. I thought it was a bit of fun at first, and then I did what I thought was right, he said, pulling himself erect. Maybe I made a mistake, but you can't punish a man for doing what he thinks is right. The captain and witnesses received this in tight-lipped silence. Is there, the captain asked Stammel after a pause, any other witness to all of this? The recruit we met coming out of the door, the one who said he was going for help. He should have seen something. Where is he? Corporal Bosk, said Stammel. Escort Jens to the front, please. No, came a squeal from behind Stammel. I don't know anything. I didn't see. I just came out. He's a friend of Corin's, said Stammel as Bosk half-dragged Jens out of formation to the front. The captain beckoned to two of the guards. They took Jens' arm and forced him upright. Now then, what's his name, Stammel? Jens, sir. Jens, I expect you to tell us the truth right now. Did you see a fight involving Paxtonarian, Corin, and Steffi, or any two of them? Jens looked frantically from side to side. When he met Corin's fierce gaze, he flinched. I saw a little tussle, sir. Sort of a little tussle. Be specific now. Did you see it start? No, I was, cleaning my boots, sir. Did you see any blows struck at all? Well, I saw Paxton and that man rolling on the floor, and then Corin said to go look at the door. Jens was staring at his feet. At the door. Yes, sir. He, said I should look for the sergeant, sir. Oh, and did you? Yes, I looked, but I couldn't see him. I mean, until you came. And just what did he tell you to do if you saw the sergeant, eh? Asked Kolya. She moved from his side and jerked his head up. Look at me. What did he tell you? Jens began to tremble. He said to tell him. Tell who? The sergeant? No. Tell him. Corin. If you saw a sergeant. I see. Kolya backed away. I don't know about your Corporal Steffi, Captain, but that recruit, she jerked a shoulder at Corin, is lying in his teeth. Agreed, said the captain. And the other one isn't much better, she said with distaste, looking at Jens. They both better go under guard, said Cedric. Captain Valachi won't be back for several days, so they can't be confined under band the whole time, but until tomorrow morning. But ask him, interrupted Corin. Ask the corporal. He'll tell you I'm not lying. The witnesses turned toward Corporal Steffi, who had stood silent through everything, but the captain intervened. Before you question him, I want to tell you what happened this morning. Very well, Captain, said the mayor. This morning I woke. When I woke, I had a message from the surgeon. Steffi woke last night and wanted to see me, but they did not call me because it was so late. This morning I went to see how he was, and found that he had no memory of the events last night. None at all. I did not want to suggest things to him, so I only told him that he would be examined by witnesses about some sort of trouble. The surgeon could find no physical cause for his loss of memory, and as you can see, the blood I saw on him yesterday was not his own. I must say that since he's been in my cohort, he has always been a competent, sober soldier and a good corporal, with no faults against him. I cannot imagine what caused his behavior, but I can swear that this is not typical. Is it likely that he would pretend a loss of memory if he had done wrong? Asked the mayor. I think not, replied Cedric. He has always been honest, in my experience. The mayor turned to Corporal Steffi. You have seen the evidence of the injuries suffered by you and others, and you have heard what testimony has been given. What is your understanding of what happened? Sir, I have no memory from just after supper last night until I woke in the infirmary. When I woke, I felt strange, dizzy, and of course my hand and the bruises hurt. I asked the surgeon what had happened, but when he found I had no memory, he would not say anything, only that I had been found hurt. When I heard this morning and saw that girl, sir, I've never beaten a woman so. I've never forced one to bed. I don't understand how I could have, but I saw her injuries. Someone hurt her, and if I did such a thing, I know what you must do. His voice trailed away. Why did you ask to see the captain last night? Because I was frightened. I wanted to know what had happened. I thought the captain would tell me, and I couldn't remember. But Steffi, said the captain, you must remember something. Maybe just the beginning. You must be able to say whether this recruit is lying. The witness stirred, but said nothing. Steffi looked at Corin with distaste. Sir, Captain, I cannot remember anything, but I tell you, sir, he must be lying. What we've seen and heard. You say that even if it condemns you? Yes, sir. Sir, it's obvious. That girl didn't beat me up. And honestly, sir, there's no way she could have. Steffi conveyed all the confidence of a senior veteran, sure of his own fighting ability. But you can remember nothing, prompted the mayor. Steffi shook his head. No, sir, I don't. But I don't expect you to believe that. You'll want to test me, I'm sure. You must remember, yelled Corin suddenly. You must! I told you yesterday! He paled as they all looked at him, and he realized what he had said. You told him, eh? Said Kolya softly. You told him what? Corin drove a vicious elbow into the midriff of the guard on his left, and as the man slumped forward, he snatched at his sword. The other guard drew his own weapon and darted forward, but Corin was free, with sword in hand, dancing sideways and looking for a way out. "Take him!" roared the captain, drawing his own sword. Stammel charged, unarmed as he was, with Bosk and Devlin behind him. Corin swung at Stammel, cursing. Stammel barely evaded the blow. Corin backed, edging toward the unarmed witnesses as the guards converged from around the courtyard. Suddenly, Kolya slipped behind him and wrapped a powerful arm around his neck. Corin fell backwards and gasping. She held him until the guards had jerked the sword out of his hands and grabbed his arms. "If it were my decision, he'd be in chains," she said calmly, dusting her hand on her robe. "At once," said Shijik. The guards grinned as they dragged Corin away. "Now, Stammel." "Sir," said Stammel, "I'd like permission to dismiss the formation now. They've seen as much as they can learn from." "I think you're right. Go ahead. But I'll want you for the rest of this." "Yes, sir." Stammel turned away. The captain, frowning, spoke to the witnesses. "Mayor Fontaine, Councillor Ministeria, I appreciate your efforts. You will want to take more testimony from both Paxenarian and Steffi, I presume." "Indeed, yes," said the mayor. "You have quite a complicated problem here, Captain. You'll remand Steffi to the Duke's court, I assume," said Kolya. "Yes, I must. Corporal Steffi." He gestured to the corporal. "Yes, sir. This must be investigated further. You must consider yourself under arrest from this time. I have to see whether Stammel will trust your parole. He's within his rights to refuse it until Captain Valachi returns." "I understand, sir. I wish I did know what had happened." While they were talking, Stammel had spoken to the other recruit sergeants, and the formation had dispersed. He had told his own corporals to take the unit outside a drill. "And keep 'em busy," he said, "until I come out and relieve you. We have a lot to work off. I'll be there as soon as I find out how Pax is and what the captain is going to do." So it was in a nearly empty courtyard that the captain turned to Stammel and said, "Well, Sergeant, you were right. I wouldn't have thought it, but, sir, I was sure Paxenarian was not to blame. But I'm not sure your corporal is. If Corin gave him something, a drug or something like that. I hadn't thought of that. Something strange has happened." "I agree," said Kolya, "and I think this should be discussed in somewhat more privacy." The mayor nodded. "I'd suggest the Duke's court, Captain Sijik." "A good idea. Steffi, get dressed and come with us. Guard, you'd best come too." The captain turned away and headed for Duke's gate. Stammel and the witnesses followed him. Steffi pulled on his tunic and came after them, trailed by a guard. And that is the end of chapter 4. Guys, I'm gonna have a serious talk with y'all. If anyone ever does something to you, anyone ever, and you don't want to, and you are blamed for what they did, no, it's not your fault. If you tell the story of what you did and what they did, other people will know and be able to help. Never think that you are to blame for what someone else has done. And on that note, I'll say bye to y'all and my peeps for now, and see you next time I upload. Bye.